Hey, before we jump into today's story, be sure you never miss another episode of 10-Minute Murder. To do that, all you have to do is follow the podcast on whatever app you're listening right now. It might say subscribe, follow, or collect, something like that. It depends on where you're listening. But hit that button and be a part of everything we're doing here.
10-Minute Murder contains depictions of actual crimes. What you are about to hear is real and violent in nature. Discretion is advised. This is 10-Minute Murder.
Welcome to the brief and bingeable true crime podcast, 10-Minute Murder. I'm Joe, the host, and thank you for being here. And last week on the podcast felt like a marathon for me. Normally on a week-to-week basis, I research and talk about a couple of different true crime stories, and those stories are usually about 10 minutes long, more or less. Last week, I covered the Manson family with 2 long episodes, and that wrapped up research that has taken me literally weeks. I watched just about every interview and documentary I could find on the subject, with notepad in hand. And several times doing that, I got so into what I was reading or watching that I forgot what I was actually supposed to be doing, which was research, writing stuff down to include in the show or to find out more information on. But I'm finished with all that now. And if you haven't had a chance to listen to the 2-part episode on the Manson family, you have an extra almost 2 hours to spare. It's available for you. Just go search for it. In the meantime, I'm going to get back to doing what I prefer to be doing, and that's the brief and bingeable episodes on different stories. Today, we're talking about the killer that inspired several mass killing sprees in the United States and Canada, including one from a previous episode of 10-Minute Murder on Alek Minassian. They were both incels that described themselves as a supreme gentleman. Hear pieces of his final vlog, where he describes who he's about to kill and why. This is Elliot Rodger's Day of Retribution. Isla Vista, California, a small California city mainly populated by students attending UC Santa Barbara. Like most West Coast beach towns, it's beautiful and has amazing weather. And right behind the campus, Devereaux Beach is a popular hangout and surf spot. It's a laid-back area where you feel like you could just relax and enjoy one of the many yearly festivals they have, like the Chilla Vista Festival or the All-Sorority Volleyball Tournament. If you really wanted to experience the college life, Isla Vista has that sort of vibe. But that all ended on May 23rd, 2014, when Elliot Rodger stormed his way through, shooting, stabbing, and running people over in his car. To understand his motive, we have to look back at Elliot's life leading up to the attack. Elliot Rodger was born in England to a British filmmaker named Peter. His mother is Malaysian Chinese and worked as a film researcher. When Elliot was young, they divorced and his father moved them to California. Elliot attended school in Los Angeles before moving to Isla Vista in 2011. He went to Santa Barbara City College for a while, but dropped out by February 2012. According to multiple family and friend sources, Elliot struggled with mental illness pretty early on. From the time he was 8 years old, he was already seeing multiple therapists, although he wasn't formally diagnosed at that time. In 2007, he was diagnosed with pervasive developmental disorder, not otherwise specified. If you aren't familiar with it, PDD-NOS sounds like a strange diagnosis only because of the vague name it's given, but essentially, it's an autism spectrum disorder. In high school, Elliot was bullied more and more as the years progressed. He withdrew into himself some and became obsessed with the online game World of Warcraft for years. In 2012, he said that he had one friend who truly understood him, and that friend said he didn't want to be friends anymore. Didn't give an explanation. On Elliot's YouTube account, he created a blog called Elliot Rodger's Official Blog. In this series of video entries, he expressed his loneliness and rejection. He discussed the fact that he wasn't taking the meds that he had been prescribed because he thought, through his own research, that he was prescribed the wrong thing. When he turned 18, Elliot Rodger was a legal adult and started refusing mental health care. He became more isolated and complained more about his inability to make friends or talk to women. A family friend offered advice on more than one occasion, but Elliot never followed that advice. People around him, acquaintances, said that during this time, any attempt they made to be nice or include him was met with coldness. In the several years leading up to his attack, Elliot Rodger was involved in many instances of acting out or just plain being a menace, like splashing coffee on two girls because they didn't smile back at him. He threw coffee on another couple because he was jealous of their effortless-looking relationship. At Gersh Park, a group was playing kickball together, so Elliot filled a super soaker with orange juice and sprayed them all down. Referring to an incident in July 2013, Rodger wrote that after being mocked at a party, he tried and failed to shove some girls over a 10-foot ledge. Instead, other boys saw it and pushed him over. His ankle was injured. When he came back up to get his sunglasses, he was again mocked and beaten. A neighbor saw Rodger coming home that day and crying, and vowing to kill the men involved, and then himself. He later wrote in his manifesto that the incident was the final trigger for planning his attack. Less than 1 month before the attacks, Elliot's parents contacted police after seeing some of his online videos. They were concerned about what he was saying and feared for the life of the people around him. Sheriff's deputies visited Elliot and found him to be very calm, rational, polite, and did not meet the criteria for an involuntary mental health commitment. He told police that he had had a misunderstanding with his parents, so they left. Not long after that, Elliot emailed his completed 107,000-word manifesto titled My Twisted World, the story of Elliot Rodger. He sent it to 34 people, including his family, childhood friends, former teachers, and his therapist. Through the pages of what he wrote, he talked about himself as being very attractive. He spouted racism and more complaints about being a virgin. He then created and uploaded his final YouTube video entry, Elliot Rodger's Retribution. He whined of being rejected by women and envying sexually active men. He detailed the motives of his planned attack.
Hi, Elliot Rodger here. Well, this is my last video. It all has to come to this. Tomorrow is the day of retribution. The day in which I will have my revenge against humanity. Against all of you. For the last 8 years of my life, ever since I've hit puberty, I've been forced to endure an existence of loneliness, rejection, and unfulfilled desires, all because girls have never been attracted to me. Girls gave their affection and sex and love to other men, but never to me. I'm 22 years old, and I'm still a virgin. I've never even kissed a girl. College is the time when everyone experiences those things such as sex and fun and pleasure. But in those years, I've had to rot in loneliness. It's not fair. You girls have never been attracted to me. I don't know why you girls aren't attracted to me, but I will punish you all for it. I don't know what you don't see in me. I'm the perfect guy, and yet you throw yourselves at all these obnoxious men, instead of me, the supreme gentleman. I will punish all of you for it. On the day of retribution, I am going to enter the hottest sorority house of UCSB. All those girls that I've desired so much, they would have all rejected me and looked down upon me as an inferior man if I ever made a sexual advance towards them. I'll take great pleasure in slaughtering all of you. You will finally see that I am, in truth, the superior one, the true alpha male. Yes. After I've annihilated every single girl in the sorority house, I'll take to the streets of Isla Vista and slay every single person I see there. All those popular kids who live such lives of hedonistic pleasure while I've had to rot in loneliness for all these years. They've all looked down upon me every time I tried to go out and join them. They've all treated me like a mouse. Well, now I will be a god compared to you, exacting my retribution, and all those who deserve it. And you do deserve it, just for the crime of living a better life than me. All you popular kids, you've never accepted me. If I can't have you, girls, I will destroy you.
On May 23rd, 2014, Elliot Rodger began his attacks at his own apartment. 3 men were killed there by numerous stab wounds to their upper bodies. Bloodstains later found in the building's hallway suggested that his victims had been killed one by one as they entered. A bloody bath towel suggested that Elliot had tried to clean the hallway in between. 2 of the victims were confirmed to be Elliot's roommates. The third was just someone visiting the apartment on the night of the killings. After the stabbings, Elliot went to a coffee shop and got a cup of coffee. Then around 8:30 p.m., he was seen working on his laptop in his car in the parking lot of his apartment building. He uploaded that Retribution video at 9:17 p.m. and sent his manifesto email a minute later. After receiving a copy of the manifesto, Rodger's therapist phoned his mother, who, finding the Retribution video on Rodger's YouTube page, contacted his father. In separate cars, they left Los Angeles for Santa Barbara, calling Isla Vista police as they were on their way. Elliot drove to the Alpha Phi sorority house at UCSB, where he knocked on the front door for a few minutes. After nobody came to the door, he just began shooting people nearby. 2 women were killed and a third was injured. Elliot Rodger got back in his car and began driving again. He fired into an unoccupied coffee shop on Pardell Road, then into a nearby deli. A man was struck 7 times and killed. He drove south on the wrong side of the street, striking a pedestrian and firing at, but missing, 2 people on the sidewalk. He shot a couple exiting a pizzeria and a female cyclist. He drove on, shooting but missing people along the street after that. Elliot made a U-turn to drive west, where he exchanged fire with the sheriff's deputy responding to the call. He struck 2 pedestrians. Elliot turned and headed west and shot 3 more people. He also struck a skateboarder and 2 cyclists with his car. Turning east, he struck another skateboarder with his car and shot 2 other men at an intersection. Near Little Acorn Park, Elliot Rodger exchanged gunfire again with 3 sheriff's deputies and was shot in the hip. He escaped police again in his car, and he struck a cyclist before crashing on a sidewalk. At 9:35 p.m., police found Elliot Rodger dead inside his car from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to his head. In the car were 3 pistols, knives, 6 empty 10-round magazines, and 548 rounds of unspent ammunition. All 6 murder victims that day were students of UC Santa Barbara. 14 others were injured that day, half of those by gunshot wounds and the other half by being struck by his car. The investigation after the attack revealed that Elliot Rodger was an active member of the incel community. Incel meaning involuntarily celibate. There are countless places online where he connected with others like himself, sharing in misogynistic hate of those he deemed as alphas or normies. One of these sites he posted after buying the pistol used in the attack that he was going to the sorority house to, quote, slaughter every single spoiled, stuck-up blonde slut I see inside there. All those girls I've desired so much. They have all rejected me and looked down on me as an inferior man. Rodger is the most frequently referenced, with incels referring to him as their saint and sharing memes with his face superimposed onto Christian icons. It's common to see references to ER in incel forums, and mass violence by incels is often referred to as going ER. That's today's 10-Minute Murder, the brief and bingeable true crime podcast. I appreciate you listening today, and if you enjoy what you hear on this podcast, I hope you'll share it with your friends that are also into true crime stories like this. And if you listen on Apple, a 5-star rating there goes a long way to helping the show grow and reach even more people. Plus, it's a huge help to me. Of course, by this point, if you haven't subscribed, I hope you'll do that, and then connect with me and the rest of this little 10-minute murder group on social media. I post visuals to the stories you hear about in these episodes on social media, plus share other things like current true crime stories, so make sure you connect there. You can search Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter for the podcast, or I'll leave links in the show notes of this episode. Thanks for listening to 10 Minute Murder. Have a good night.